Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. Wonderful to have you here with us today. We have a guest today that will be speaking about Essenes and the possible connection between the Essenes and the Living Foods community, or just Living Foods in general. So, as a beginning for today's live stream, just know that you can also ask questions of our guests or any of our co hosts, and you can also participate if you'd like to. So, what I'd like to do is first welcome Pete and ask Pete, do you know what exactly would you like to share today from your own knowledge about the Essenes, Pete, and how has that influenced you in any way, shape, or form?
Oops. Yeah, I've unmuted. Okay. That took me by surprise. What do I know? I remember coming across a book, might have been about 16 years ago, and reading through that, it didn't really acknowledge or it didn't digest too well at that time. The more I journeyed over that 17 years, so much of it made sense. Actually, in the early days when I was doing some groups in, say, around 17 in my teens, we touched on it there. The biggest impact, I would say, would be over the last 5 years, and that's the Essene Gospel of Peace. And read some of that, listened to the audio quite a lot, and it's quite refreshing, quite revealing. And if I was to do shame and guilt, I would say it could definitely put me to shame in terms of even to the level I got. But I don't do the shame, but just see it very encouraging, and to see how far we are lost, how far we have come away from a connection to, nature, Mother Earth, to, you could say, more gospel words, the divine. Go back to the Ethiopian Bibles, the 21 that, aren't really seen to be in the public eye too much. So in terms of fasting, and should I say the morals, and the fruits, it's been tremendous, actually. It's been a tremendous impact, I would say. And then we ventured into the breads. It's really interesting in terms of, sun-dried wheat berries, making the sun-dried breads. And, the hot and cold bathing I've come across in terms of the Essenes. So, yeah, it's had a major impact with other, say, doctrines that I've come across. And when you go more deeper, or when I have gone more deeper, and early hours, waking up in the risings, getting all this different information. So it's really eye-opening how what I read occasionally or come across reinforces an intuitive knowing. So, yes, so we do cross-reference with that.
Thank you so much for that. So, our special guest today is Ronnie Skurow. Ronnie,
Yes.
um, what is your response, and can you give us your own journey into learning about the Essenes and living foods?
Well, I uh, I started to get into raw foods around 1999, and I was very fortunate in that I got to hear pretty much all of the what I would call the original of this stage of raw food in our current era. All the masters speaking. Everybody from Victorius, Kuvalanskis, just all of them. I got to hear them. Anytime I could find a raw food class or somebody lecturing about raw food, I would go to hear it. And almost all of them mentioned the Essenes somewhere in their presentation. And so I had never heard of the Essenes. And So I started diving into it and learning about it and reading it. And I read the Essene Gospel of Peace. And the author, Edmund Bordeaux-Sakay, he actually wrote about 30 books. And through my journey, I got every single one of his books, read them from cover to cover. I probably read the Essene Gospel of Peace, I don't know, I would say over 100 times, because I started reading it, I would say around the year 2000, maybe 2001. And I was just blown away by how beautiful it was written. And then I started researching it and, found a lot of interesting things. A lot of people think it's the real deal. A lot of theologians think it's a complete phony. And so, started just learning as much as I can about it. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a priest or a rabbi or anything like that. I'm a truth seeker and a seeker of health, vibrant health, like all of your panel and probably many of the people that listen. And the more I got into it, the more I read it, I just kept finding more and more things. And to me, it was more like just like reading a beautiful poem or something, because everything made sense. I really didn't question if it was real or not, and that's how I got into it.
Could you, because most people do not know anything about the Essenes, could you explain from your own perception who were the Essenes?
Yes, well, the Essenes were a sect of Jewish people, and they first appeared about 100 years before Christ appeared, and they disappeared shortly after Christ was crucified. And there's Christ is mentioned all over the Essene Gospel of Peace, and there's no question that the Essenes were real, because there were Roman historians, Jewish historians, there were philosophers in that time that wrote about them. And they wrote about kind of how they lived and how many of them there were, and they documented it. And so we know that they absolutely existed. And we can surmise that Jesus Christ knew of them because they were living, in the same place, basically within just miles, and at the same time period. And again, there was basically 3 Jewish sects back there, and the Essenes actually, they separated from the other Jewish sects. They wanted to be on their own, and they were mostly older men. There were women in there, but most of them were older men. They were celibate. They took in orphans, any orphan from any religion, any race. They would take them in and raise them. And they were philosophers, educators, and that's who they were. And that's how we know about them. And the other way that we know about them is that Edward Bordeaux-Sakay, he first translated his book, the Essene Gospel of Peace, in 1928. He translated it into French. And then in 1937, he translated it into English. And it sold for $1. They just wanted as many people as possible to be able to read it. And millions of people did read it, and it was sold all over the world. And at that time, actually back in the 30s, there was a vibrant raw food community in the United States, mostly based out of the San Diego area of California. And he started a health retreat in, I can't remember what it was, but it was like Ecuador or Costa Rica. I think it was Costa Rica, right out of Costa Rica. He started a health retreat, and many of the famous people, famous authors, actors, writers, they flocked there to learn about natural health methods. And it was a really fantastic place. And it didn't go on after he left this world, but it had a lot of impact on a lot of people. And the Essene Gospel of Peace has had very much impact on just millions and millions of people. And it's basically Christ talking to sick people, telling them how they need to get healthy, how they can get healthy, and explaining the view on it. And some of the views are kind of striking if you're Christian or Jewish, because one of the commandments is kind of that we only have one God. But he talks about our mother in heaven, and her angels, and how we have a mother, which is basically the mother of the earth and life and all the living things on earth. He explains it that we have a heavenly father and we have an earthly mother. And we came from our earthly mother. Every bit of our body came from this earth, and every bit of our body will go back to it. And one of the main themes is that if you want to attain vibrant health, you have to follow the rules of your earthly mother, because she is in us and we are in her. We are on this earth, and there is, plants and living things. And he explains things. It's very eloquent. He explains things like, he'll say, every living creature has a mother and a father. And most creatures, it's the mother who raises them and gets them ready so the father can go out and train them or teach them whatever they're going to do. And he explains that we have this mother on earth, and if we follow her rules, and if we listen to her and live according to her, she will protect us as any mother protects anything. A mother lion, a mother chicken, any mother protects their offspring, their youth. And so that's it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of things in there that at first they seem like they go against most religious teachings, but after you read it a few times and you start to put things together, you start to realize that it really is a beautiful. I don't know if we call it a religion or a philosophy. I look at it as a philosophy, and to me, it doesn't matter if it's real or not, because, like, I'm a fan of the Beatles. I got to see the Beatles live at the smallest place that they played in the United States. And if you watch videos of the Beatles, you'll hear some songs where they talk about who wrote it. And Paul will say, well, I wrote that song. And John will say, no, it was me. I wrote that song. Don't you remember? And so who cares who wrote those great songs? It's just you enjoy listening to them. And I feel the same way about the Essene Gospel of Peace. I couldn't, if I definitely felt in my heart that it wasn't real, I would say, well, Seke must have made this up, or he put bits and pieces together and created something. But I really don't know for sure. And I don't know that anybody knows for sure. And he's not alive to tell us. But he also wrote a book called The Discovery of the Essene Gospel of Peace. And in that book, he explains exactly how he came across it, exactly how he put it together. And it certainly sounds truthful and reasonable to me.
Could you also explain, please, Ronnie, the Essene way of life as we know about it today?
Yes. Well, the Essenes, for example, take the law, thou shalt not kill. Well, according to the Essenes, it's thou shalt not kill, not man, not beasts, and not the food that you put into your mouth. So let that sink in for a second. That explains everything you really need to know about raw food. And then everything else stems from that. Your raw food is living food. And food is killed if you cook it, or if you freeze it, or if you allow it to rot. And that is the basis of today's topic is how it relates to raw food. I could go on and on about their philosophy about religion, but I'm going to limit it to raw food. But that statement right there, you cannot kill the food that you put into your mouth. And then it goes, when you read other religious things like only life can beget life, well, there you have it again. It reinforces what they're saying. And so when I first got into raw food, so many of the raw food teachers, and I saw all of them, they they would talk about raw food, and they would have a different, each one had a different explanation as to how they got turned on to raw food and what it meant to them. But the statements in the Essene Gospel piece, and they're numerous, seem to cover everything. And it makes more sense than really anything else that I've heard. I get lost when people start talking about what living food does to enzymes or does to this or that, or all kinds of medical or scientific explanations, because all that stuff can be manipulated and made to make a case for almost any argument. But when you have a just statement like, you can't kill the food that you put into your mouth, to me that just says it all. But there's many statements about that, and in the book where he's talking, for example, the book starts off with a group of sick people coming to Jesus and basically asking for his help to get help. And he starts to tell them, what they need to do. They need to learn about our mother of the earth and about her angels. They use the word angels for some things that you might say, using different word for, like the sun. They would call the sun an angel. And, to give you an example, like Pete was talking about the scene about bread, when after, Christ told these followers that they need to eat living food and they can't cook. Someone asked, well, how can we cook our daily bread? And he explained exactly the way that I learned it from Sherry Saurier about how to make, bread in raw bread in a dehydrator, how to soak things first, let them sprout a little, grind them up, and then dehydrate them. But he explained how to do it out in the sun and how the sun would empower that. And when you think of it, the sun powers everything. A solar panel gets the energy from the sun to produce electricity. Plants turn towards the sun. And I live in an area, I live in the Mojave Desert. And where I live is the exact same topography and climate as where the Essenes lived. And of course, I learned how to make bread in a dehydrator, crackers, tortilla shells, all that kind of stuff to make raw. But when I tried it out in the sun, exactly as it's written in the Essene Gospel, how to do it, it not only worked, it tasted better. It's kind of like, when you talk to some raw people or you see some raw people, enthusiasts, and you say they glow. The bread kind of glowed inside of me. I mean, I could feel the difference. It wasn't a dramatic difference, but I could feel the difference. And, just over and over again, I found things in the Essene Gospel where it just rang the bell of truth inside of me about what raw food, about raw vitality was like. And I can tell you, I was 100% totally raw food for a little over 20 years. And after those 20 years, I'm now, I would say, maybe 80 or 85% raw. And the rest, my wife, Min, who couldn't be here today, she's in Vietnam, she makes soups and she makes stuff that smells and tastes so incredible that it's very hard for me sometimes to turn it down. So I eat a little bowl of soup every day, but she doesn't boil it over and over. She just kind of warms it up. But I keep the Essene Gospel piece and a few other of Sakei's books with me at all times when I travel, at home, and sometimes when I need inspiration or clarity about something, I just flip through the pages, kind of randomly pick a page, and I'll find something in there that will uplift me. And I just think it's probably the best book that explains raw food that is out there. And again, even if it wasn't written 2,000 years ago by the Essenes, it was, if you think that it's fake, well, then it was written in 1928. So it still goes back a long way. And to have it be so clear about how things are and to be on the front line, so to speak, of raw food, it's just amazing to me.
And for those who are tuning in now, Ronnie, could you again repeat the name of the book and and where people can find it? And do you have a copy of it to show?
It's called the Essene Gospel of Peace. It's not very long. It's about 40 pages. You can find it on the internet. There's audio versions, but I will tell you that the impact on your soul, your brain, is much stronger and better when you hold it in your hands and you read it as opposed to listening to it. You'll get a lot out of it by listening to it, but there's something about reading words that you hold in your hand that you will respond better to. And you can find it. I'm pretty sure you can buy it on Amazon. And again, he has over 30 books. And just another one of his I would recommend real quick is this one. It's called Creative Work, Karma Yoga. And it's about what work means. And it's everybody, I've probably given this book to maybe 5 to 10 people, and every one of them has gotten back to me and said, wow, Ronnie, you don't know what an impact this little book has had on me.
And can you repeat it? And can you repeat his name and spell it for the
It's
audience?
right. It's called Creative Work by Edmond Bordeaux. His name is pronounced Sakay. I know that because I've heard it from his daughter and from his wife, but it looks like you would say it's Sakeli, but it's actually Sakay. Edward Bordeaux Sakay, Creative Work. And one of the things I was going to say at the end of our discussion, but I might forget. So I'm 76 years old, and sometimes I get a little forgetful. But one of the things that he says in the Essene Gospel Peace and in the book about creative work is that just eating raw food and following your mother of the earth to get yourself vibrantly healthy you don't do that just for the sake of living longer or wanting to be healthy. What's the purpose? And the purpose is that you can fulfill our most important thing while we are on this earth, and that is work. It's the work that we do, whatever it is, whether you're a musician, whether you're a healer, a teacher. It's your work that defines you. It's your work that comes from your character. And so when you're eating raw food and when you're wanting to get vibrantly healthy, it's not a good enough reason to do it just because you want to be able to play tennis better, unless that's your work. It's to enable this incredible body that we've all been given from the earth. I mean, everything our blood is basically water. Water comes from the earth. Our body is full of air. Air is from the earth. I mean, every part of the flesh in our body is really, it's just cells. The same as if you open up a peach or an apple, it's just cells. All these building blocks come from the earth. And of course, when we die, they'll go back to the earth, and somebody or some plant or in some other way, they will show up again. And one of the phrases I love in the Essene Gospel of Peace, and imagine if it is a phony, imagine if the writer Sakay would write this in his book. One of the lines that they say is that all scripture comes from men, but all life and all its hosts, we're a host of life. We were given life into this body. We're a host of it. Plants are a host of life. All life comes from God. But all these written words, including the Essene Gospel of Peace, including anything that you read, is written by men, and it's subject to all the failings of men. Lust for fame, lust for greed, all these kind of things. And it's just, it's things like this that I'll read them over and over again, and I'll just say, wow, this really kind of puts it in place. And another thing that they say is like, if you harm even one part of your body, you can end up just, I forget what they use, but you just end up like dead or worthless or useless. And of course, if you smoke and you damage your lungs, well, you're going to find yourself, it's going to affect every part of your body. And people will ask Christ in the book about how can you just maybe have a little bit of something. And well, the answer is, there's places in our body, in our lungs, and in our brains where cells, little teeny microscopic cells, have to line up one at a time to get through. So, yeah, a little bit of anything can cause your whole body to go, off the deep end. So it just reinforces how important it is to follow these rules of life. Only life comes from life. And when you're going to eat, you have to eat living food that is alive or hasn't been destroyed or killed. And even seeds. Seeds are, you wouldn't think they're alive, but you can sprout them. So life is in there. And so when you eat seeds, whether they're sprouted or not, you're still eating something that's coming from life, as opposed to eating something that's been cooked, deep fried, and destroyed. Then if it's going to destroy your hand, if you put your hand in a deep fryer, your hand is going to be useless for anything. And the same thing happens to food. If you deep fry food or cook it past a certain degree, it's not going to be useful for building in your body. And there's two main philosophies about what food actually does. Some philosophers will tell you that, well, when you eat food, your body takes things out of it. You'll get vitamin C and you'll get this nutrient, and that nutrient, your body will take that and will take those building blocks to build you. And there's another train of thought that says, no, food is like coal going in, shoveling coal into a locomotive. All it does is fire up the engine. And you eat that food and it fires up the engine in your body, and your body will go out and get everything it needs. Like water is is air. Water is two chemicals, hydrogen and oxygen, that are out, that we breathe. And your body can take that and make water in your body if it needs to. And your body can take anything and make stuff. And yeah, it's, there's a mystery to all of this. I'm sure all of us have friends or people that we know that eat the worst diets in the world, and they still end up living to be 105 years old. And some of them are healthy, maybe even vibrantly healthy. And we all know people like, Jim Fix was an Olympic runner, ate healthy all his life, and ran, and he dropped dead at a very early age. Life is a mystery. But what isn't a mystery is that we don't, nothing in us is man-made. We are made from the elements of the earth. And it's not, and another thing is, no matter whether you believe that we came to earth, what I'm trying to say is, when we came to earth, everything we needed, and in the proportion that we needed, was already here for us, waiting for us. We couldn't have come here on earth and then decided, well, let's figure out how to make rivers, and let's figure out how to make sunshine, and let's figure out how to make earth or oxygen. A lot of things like the makeup of the air, the oxygen that we breathe, are ruled by very, very fine percentages. And if these percentages get out of whack, we won't be able to live. And so, there was a time when the whole earth was covered with water, a time the whole earth was covered with trees and forests and greenery. And look at the things that man has done to the earth since we were here. But what keeps all these things in balance? No matter what we do, we're still able to breathe air. We're still able to drink the water. We're still able to find the things that we need in the proportions that we need to stay alive. And something has to regulate it, because if anything gets out of regulation, we wouldn't be alive. So our attachment to the earth, whether you want to call it the mother of the earth, or the angels of the earth, or whether you want to call it the soil, the dirt, whatever. There's no doubt that that's what we're attached to, that's what we're from, that life only comes from life. And that's kind of some of the basic theses of what the philosophy is about. But the book also goes on and tells you how to eat. And many of these things have been proven to be true even today. For example, they'll explain that you can't mix all kinds of foods together because, listen to this sentence. I've got to look at it. I got some notes here because, again, I get forgetful. But listen to this sentence. Well, I can't find it, but I'm pretty sure I can remember it. Is that all men and nations divided amongst themselves will basically destroy themselves. And what that is saying is that you can't have division. And if you eat things, and you'll hear raw food teachers talk about this, if you eat things that don't combine correctly or too many combinations of things, your body will have a hard time dealing with that because those things are fighting against each other. There's many raw foodists that I know that only eat mono meals. They'll only eat fruit in the morning, bananas and things, oranges, whatever, apples, just fruit. Or they'll only eat certain things at night, but they'll keep it simple. He taught that we can't eat foods that come from far away. And I've heard scientists and raw food teachers say that, if you go to a health food store, you'll find bottles of honey that say local honey. And they say that because they want you to know that the pollens and things that the honey has come from your local area. Because also in the Essene Gospel of Peace is a sentence where Christ explains that God knows the food that you need in the place that you are and the time of the year and where you're at. And of course, nowadays people can eat, you can get tropical fruit in the middle of the winter. You can get food that you never normally would find where you live, and you can get that at supermarket stuff and start eating it. But maybe it's not meant for you. Maybe you can stay alive, but will you be vibrant? I may not be the perfect example of health. I'm 76 years old. And by the way, here's an interesting thing I learned. In Vietnam, for example, men explained to me, when you're born, you're 1 year old already the day you're born. You don't wait. They don't wait till you've been on the earth a year. You're one the day you're born. So in Vietnam, I would be 77. But what I'm, and the lighting here is bad, but for a 76-year-old person, I exercise daily. I'm physically sound. I'm not on medications. I've had some injuries, some really severe injuries, and I've had a few illnesses, and I've been able to recover my health without medical intervention. And I mean, really serious, a couple of serious injuries that I don't think many people would survive without being hospitalized, or under a doctor's care. But for example, when I was about 22 years old, I got a hernia, and I had to have an operation, and I had a mesh put into my intestines, and those things are notorious for going bad after years. Well, again, I'm 76. I had this thing when I was like 22, and it started to go septic on me. It started to get infected down there, and I cured it with garlic. I cured it with raw garlic, eating raw garlic every morning with a little bit of olive oil, a little bit of honey, and it cured itself. Now, had I gone to a doctor, they might have cured it, but I would have been on some heavy antibiotics. It would cost a fortune, and not everybody does well with antibiotics. And Christ explains in the Essene Gospel that you can find a cure for almost anything on this earth. And I don't claim to be an expert about healing, how to heal from earthly things, but it's out there. It's out there. My wife Min sometimes will go to a place where they sell. It's kind of like a private place, but it's open to public, but you have to be accepted in there. And they sell Chinese herbs, and they have a whole wall full of everything. I mean, you can't imagine things that you probably never saw before. Pieces of duck eggs, roots of things, leaves of things. And they have guys there that, if you tell them what's wrong, they'll combine, make you a prescription, put it in a bag, and tell you whether to make a tea out of it or to eat it. It's all out there, and we can find it. But again, it all comes from the earth. And raw food, I believe, puts us in tune with that. And I believe that many documents, and including this Essene Gospel, explains the philosophy behind that in terms that are poetic. As Pete said, they make you feel good. It makes you feel good when you read it. And I just would highly recommend it to anybody who's into raw food, or if you're not into it, it might get you into it. And some people might read it and say, oh God, this is, I don't want to hear about angels and this and that. Well, that's what they might have called the sun. They got a lot of things wrong thousands of years ago. They talk, one of the things when they talk about work is that why work is so important is because everything works. And rivers don't stop running, bees don't stop flying and creating honey. And so the work is so important. And I'm sorry if I'm rambling a little bit because I have a tendency to do that.
That's okay, Ronnie. That's okay. Thanks so much for everything. I'm going to bring in Lisa. Lisa, just give us your response here and your perception of what you already know or didn't know about the Essene.
Ronnie, thank you so much for all that you shared. I have a question for you. For somebody new to the raw food movement, to the living food, movement, what would you suggest? Where should they start?
I would say start by keeping it as simple as you possibly can. Look at what you're buying or what you're eating and ask yourself, does this come from the earth, or was this made in a factory somewhere? And if you got a can of Pringles in your hand, the answer is going to come to you right away. If you got an apple in your hand, the answer is going to come to you right away. And I would say just start eating as simple as you can. Eat as much or as little as you feel like eating. And then slowly, if you find things that you're craving, like chips or spaghetti, you follow that. I just want to add one more thing. I hope that answers your question, but that's what I would do, is just keep it simple at first and look at what you're eating. But when I first met Min, I didn't even know she knew anything about raw food. She's from Vietnam, and she would make me salads and stuff because we immediately moved in together and shortly afterwards got married. But she would make salads for me every day, and I would always say, Min, eat whatever you want. You can eat whatever you want. And as I got to know her, and I can verify this through people like Sherry Sorie, Happy Oasis, as I got further, I started to realize that she explained to me where and how she came from. She grew up in the jungle of Vietnam. She was the youngest of 8 children. Their father had abandoned the family shortly after Min was born. Min spent her infancy strapped to her mother's back while her mother went out into fields, jungle, picking up food, finding food. They had no money. They had no electricity. They couldn't freeze food. If they wanted to make food, they had to cook it. And she basically grew up being I would say 95% raw foodist without having any idea what raw food was. To them, it was just the food that they ate. Her mother, she explained to me that her mother had 8 children and virtually no money. And her mother would make food for people and get a little bit of money. But when they had meat, it was like maybe once a month they would have a little piece of meat and they would split it between 9 of them, 8 children and the mother. And so, and as I come to learn and research, there's a lot of people like this in this world that have been living on raw food because that's what was available to them. And again, they ate the food that was available to them where they lived in their country during the seasons that it was, it came ripe or whatever.
Thank you for that very, very much, because I've been saying this for years, that many people eat that way without calling it that way. You don't have to label everything. I'm going to bring in Sabina here.
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here, and thank you so much for all you shared, Ronnie. And this is a lot, so many different topics you brought up. And I don't know a lot about the Essenes. Many years ago, I read a book from Gabriel Cousins, and he mentioned the Essenes. So I got curious, and I got the Gospel of Peace, and I remember reading it, and it was very beautiful. And that actually was during the time I was doing a lot of fasting, so it really resonated with me. And then I was actually, over 6 years, I fasted every month, 5 days, always on the time of the new moon. So it was kind of a ritual. And it really started by when in 2017, I actually had Lyme disease. And I was very shocked that I have such a thing, because I lived very healthy, mostly raw foods since I'm 19. Not 100%, but I would say 90%, and always eating organic from local farmers. So suddenly I got Lyme disease. I was like, what is happening here? And that was actually during the time I also went through an intense breakup. So there was a lot of emotional issues as well. So then diving deep into fasting, that was really for me a catalyst. A lot of stuff would come up, and I went through some major healing phase where I would just realize I want to make this my lifestyle, fasting. And over 6 years, I fasted like about 300 days, which I look back and was like, wow, how did I even do that? But I was so committed to dive deep into health. And I love all the pieces you shared. Yes, that everything comes from Mother Earth, because Mother Earth has actually a medicine for everything. And anything can be healed with what's available by the earth. And I have not been to a doctor, I would say more than 25 years. I can't even remember. And I have not gotten colds or flus or anything of that sort in more than 20 years. So the only thing was that issue with the Lyme disease. But since I fasted, I have never had any issues. So yes, it's definitely a proof that fasting works. I think it's the most powerful medicine, and eating the foods from Mother Nature. So thank you for all you shared.
Wonderful, Sabina. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring on Pete here.
Yeah, thank you, Ronnie. That's amazing. And you've read the book probably 100 times. Wow. And, we have the Bible and we have the Quran and we have many different things. And it's just like, wow, why don't they have a section of that in these books? It would really cut out a lot of the sort of, anyway, would cut out a lot of the potentially misguiding, whatever we'd like to call it. And it's great. It sounds like you couldn't get enough of the speakers at the time. Wow, I wish I was around there at the time. I was into different things at the time, not the food, but in terms of different astrology, different teachings, inquiry in terms of daily diary, dreams, etc. And which took me into some of the work which I read later on in my years in terms of the Essene and of the Essenes. But yes, I agree with you where so many things, different names, different words, we get caught up in alkaline, not alkaline, enzyme this, enzyme that, or the proteins. It's like, whoa. Fortunately, whether I'm guided or not, somehow I just don't get too busy in them areas, and just do what really resonates and really try it for myself. And from that doing and discipline has given me the results that I've got myself. I won't go too much into my story, but a wake-up call 18 years ago, which got me on the journey. And you just see how we are just blinkered, really indoctrinated from the music, the films, the other people, the billboards, the news. So, wouldn't it be so nice if everyone had that book and it was compulsory that they had to read it at school, and it was reinforced by other people? And death begets death, life begets life, and it's really quite simple. Like yourself, I mean, we do a bit of freezing in terms of some raw cakes, but like yourself, I wholeheartedly agree in terms of the impact that people make as a vegan, as a raw fooder, the impact on life, and the more godliness, the more, say, divine, it's beautiful the way the Essene Gospel of Peace talks about Mother Earth, brings back where we all have come from. So, I mean, it is a beautiful book to start. We do on purpose do some complicated looking foods, imitating the foods that we once had. And that's to inspire people that, even though it looks like, the foods, the more compromising foods we were used to, or some are still used to, you can still have these foods which are living foods, So we play around with the images and some of the, let's just say, more decaying dead images in terms of, whether it's eggs or, plant-based, making it all plant-based pates that look like, the wrong unlived foods. So yeah, thanks ever so much, Ronnie. And I will go back to the Gospel of Peace and read it again.
Thank you, Pete. So I wanted to speak a little bit about the fact that there's so many people with so many illnesses. We have so many different names for the same illness. I find it remarkable that we keep coming up with all these names for the same illness. Just disconnection with ourselves. And we are the earth. We are actually come from the earth, and into the earth we go. But all life and all matter return to the earth. And this disconnection between ourselves and amongst ourselves and with our own selves and our bodies, I think, is the cause of all illness. And I'm not just talking about physical illness and all the many difficult names we have given them, which is the same illness, but also mental and physical and emotional illness. And I think all physical illness comes from mental illness. That we're disconnected with our own magnificence, that we're disconnected with the fact that we were not just thrown here willy-nilly, that we were actually brought here, and to actually not just take from the earth, but to enforce the dynamism, the dynamic ability to live in a place where giving and taking can occur on equal levels, and for us to augment and amplify the circle of life. I think the Essenes did it in a remarkable way. There is proof that they existed. There's proof that we exist, and that we also cannot just continue on the path of self-aggrandizement or self-hatred, or trying to uplift parts of ourselves while downgrading parts of ourselves. We need to look at Mother Earth and see how everything is available to us. Destruction must come before creation, so destruction is also fine. And creation needs destruction before creation can take place. And I think what the Essenes, they gave us really incredible prototypes of how to do that. So to end today, I'm going to go back to our special guest, Ronnie. And Ronnie, what would you like to end with today?
I would just like to thank every one of you for being here and allowing me to speak with you today as your beautiful souls. And just remember, don't take everything too seriously. You got to have fun. One of the things that Christ also taught was that you shouldn't eat when you're upset or you're angry or you're mad, and it kind of follows through to everything. Just take it easy, keep it simple. And as Pete said, one person I might have been Victoria's Kuvalanskis. I'm not sure who it was somewhere at a raw food place, and they had the raw food pizzas, and he just looked at me and said, why do we want to glorify pizza? One of the worst things in the world. But the answer is you got to have fun, you got to enjoy life, and just find some joy. That's one of the angels of that they talk about, the angel of joy in the Essene Gospel. Put some joy in your life, make this fun, and just put your trust in nature and you'll be fine.
And which brings us to Lisa, joy. How would you like to wrap up today, Lisa?
I love that you brought in joy, especially the angel of joy, because I think we can get caught up in just being so serious about everything. And when we're passionate, sometimes that can lean towards a seriousness. But I think finding the joy and living through your heart and having what you eat as an extension of that, I think is just a truly beautiful place to be. So thank you.
I agree with you, Lisa. Everything we eat, drink, think, say is an extension of ourselves. It tells us everything we need to know about ourselves. Sabina, how would you like to wrap up today?
Yes, I'm right with you all. I always live in the joy paradigm, and every day I ask myself, how can I create joy today with whatever I'm doing? Even we're in the middle of some freezing ice cold temperature that keeps going on and on and on without any end in sight. How can I still find joy? Even we have like minus degrees and I'm sitting here surrounded by ice. And yes, because every time we think rigid about the food we're eating or any kind of rigidity, that always creates stagnation in our body. So we want to open up the flow, and the best we do it by playing, having fun, experiencing joy and bliss, and yes, becoming childlike again.
And experiencing our own radiance, right, Sabina?
Absolutely, yes.
So that brings us now to Pete. How would you like to wrap up today, Pete?
Yeah, joy. I mean, I found the joy, the love in myself really from certain tools. So, and the food was an extension of that. So it's just like in bliss. And then, my partner of 6 years. I mean, we have so much fun. We have so much fun in doing the creations, and it's to share. The whole 17 years doing festivals really was to share. After 2 years of my wake up call 15 years ago, I was shown how we're such in a dire strait. So to share what I was doing, and we're going to keep sharing. And, that's the new earth. Us changing is the new earth and the new paradigm, the inner us, the inner work. So joy is a massive one. It's coming back to that child, that innocence, and we have to clear so much, find as many protocols and tools we can so we can get back to that inner child, the untraumatized child, letting go of whatever has happened and being with your child and being in the creative flow.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone. Ronnie, we really thank you for coming on today with us, for giving us your time and your experiences and everything else that you have been able to really shine in your own life. And also, can you just speak about very quickly the books with Min and the recipes that you and Min, who's a living food chef?
I'm sorry, speak about what?
The books that you and Min, your recipes that you've created.
Oh, well, when we first got into it, we wanted to share the food that Min makes, because I could go on and about, but I've eaten raw food everywhere, but hers is different because, again, it's her Vietnamese style and what she learned. But we made a couple of DVDs and we sold a ton of them, and we did all the festivals and things like that. And you can find them online. Our website is the letter B, RAW, UBRaw.com. and we sell them as inexpensively as we possibly can. Min doesn't like being in business, but I just love to share this with people. And if anybody wants them that can't afford it, we're happy to give it to you. And if you know people you want to give them to you, we'll give you some more of them because, again, it's just how it makes us, we get more out of giving them away than we do, by selling them, to be honest.
Yes, so I really recommend their actual videos. If you have a video player, you can still play a video. I really recommend their videos of their recipes. Absolutely incredible, really astonishing, and really, really helpful to have those for anybody who wants to know how can I recreate some of the things that I grew up with or the things that are in restaurants and still be healthy. Wonderful videos. Do you have any of them online at all, Ronnie?
I think you're addressing me. I'm having a little trouble hearing you, but you can get downloads of them from the website UB Wall, or you can go to ronnieandmin.com. It's the same thing, and you can download the recipes. And yeah, it's all there. We don't travel anymore, really, and we don't do demonstrations anymore, but we sure had a lot of fun. We did a lot of corporate demonstrations because, business owners are waking up to the fact that healthy employees are a lot less expensive than unhealthy employees for many, many reasons. And so we did many corporate events where we just went into casinos to, every type of place and just did demonstrations to their employees on showing them how they could take some simple steps that they could do to eat this kind of food. And yeah, it's not going away. It's been here forever. And living food, raw food will be here for a long, long time. And God bless, Pete, Lisa, Sabrina, and Doreen for helping people to figure it out and get on the right track. And also, just real quick, I wanted to say I forgot what Pete had mentioned. I think Sabrina mentioned fasting. And that's one of the first things that's mentioned in this Scene Gospel piece is fasting, and then intermittent fasting, because they talk about fasting 1 day a week. And yeah.
Thank you for that, Ronnie.
Dorit, you're on mute.
Who's talking? Am I talking or is somebody else talking? I lost track here. But you know what? Hey, it's a beautiful world
Ronnie.
out there.
It's okay, Ronnie. It's okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for dropping by. Thanks, everyone, for coming to this today. Please make sure that you share this video and go on Ronnie and Ming's site. Download those amazing recipes. You will really like them. Thank you, Pete. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sabrina. Until next week, everyone, we wish you everything that you need to discover on earth, that you do discover it.